Here we are at the Justice Conference Asia 2016. We're with Danielle Strickland, who's obviously a major advocate for justice. And you talked and you hit on really some awesome points. You talked about how fear, when fear is a part of our life, it can make us, lead us into oppression, but it can also make us an oppressor. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure, yeah. I just discovered when I was doing a study of Exodus, I was looking at the sort of how the Israelites got oppressed in Egypt originally, because they were first invited as guests. And then they became oppressed, and the oppression's kind of rooted in the Israelites were afraid of Pharaoh. But in Exodus chapter 1, it also says that because Pharaoh was afraid of them, he oppressed them. And I really started to understand that when we allow fear to dictate our lives, or when we make decisions that are fear-based, we're either being oppressed or we're oppressing someone else. That just is the currency of fear.
And you talked about how oppression can be external. I think we talk about that a lot, but it can also be internal. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. This is what Paul's talking about. Galatians 5:1 is the scripture I was using, where he's talking to the people of God, and he's saying that you've been set free by Jesus, but now you have to be free, like for real life, and don't let kind of things enslave you again. And so this oppression just has this capacity to come back in other forms. And of course, my experience, 21 years, I've been trying to get women out of the sex trade and out of the sexual exploitation. And the process, even when you get them free physically, that internal oppression that just drives them back again is just mind-blowing. You know, you're just like, how is this even happening? You realize that oppression is actually this thing that begins inside of people.
And you talked about also, I mean, sometimes we don't even think about the fact that we might be living in slavery.
Yes.
And you mentioned pornography in particular as being a real issue, and how that can lead to slavery on both sides. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I think absolutely. So we know that pornography is basically, prostitution on film. And we know that it is one of the means by which people are enslaved, and it allows human trafficking to flourish, for example. And even the idea of commodifying a human being, thinking somebody's just an object instead of a person, which is what pornography does. And then I was at a university college, a couple thousand students, and a bunch of them just confessed that they were addicted to porn. And I remember actually talking to a 17-year-old kid, just freshman, and he was just a beautiful Christian kid. I mean, really just a beautiful guy. And he came that night to a chapel to get free, and just said, and he's just bawling. He said, I can't even look at myself in the mirror. I hate myself. Will you help me? And it was the first time I ever realized, because up until then, I've always been working with women exploited. So like when men use pornography, I just want to slap them around. I just want to say like, stop it. It was the first time I realized that actually this was an assault. This was like an oppression against a generation of boys. And because we're also afraid to talk about it, we allow them to be oppressed. And then their oppression makes them oppressors, because now they're actually the problem. And so it's just a cyclical nature of oppression. Yeah, we're all caught in a terrible system that needs to be stopped. Right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being at the Justice Conference this year, and we will look forward to hearing more from you soon.
Thank you.